All right, we're back again. Legends Live. Coach Schuman and Mike Farrell. We're discussing a topic today that is obviously hot in the marketplace. Uh, everything in college football, and that is the war between Nick Saban, primarily, and Jimbo Fisher. Drag Deion Sanders into that as well in Jackson State, but primarily it goes down to the NIL and transfer portal. Two topics of discussion. But before we talk about that and bring Mike Farrell on, who's right here ready to go, want to talk to you about what both me and Mike Farrell have going on. You get 45 years of recruiting experience, coaching experience in helping you get to the next level. If you go to myfootballcamps.com/D1, Mike and me do video promotion for you guys. Send it out to our whole following, which basically covers every single college coach in the country. And the guys, most importantly, that you're interested in, this is why we call it a D1 promotion, is the guys at Division I level, both FBS and FCS. Mike?
Yeah, the most recent one was, Carson Rauner from Nebraska, who's kind of interesting because he doesn't get a lot of attention being in Nebraska. Obviously he's known in Omaha, but not known around the country. And, I know you already did your breakdown, and I've watched his film. I'm going to watch it one more time. And this is a kid who just makes a lot of plays on the run. I mean, his offensive line doesn't really do much for him, and he's just scrambling around, but he's got a live arm. He's mobile. He's tough. And, he might be a kid that a few schools have never heard of that's going to get discovered through this process. So it's over 1 million social media followers between us. And I think it's well worth it. So that's the pitch there. I'm going to probably get to him and break it down even more over the next couple of days and then promote him. But just DM either of us. My DMs are open. Are your DMs open?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, just DM us and we'll tell you more about it. Or as he said, as Coach Schuman said, myfootballcamps.com/D1. So let's delve into a little bit of the NIL, and we'll finish about the promotion process as well. But the topic of discussion, everything I talk about, every call I get, every newspaper interview, radio interview, TV, all that stuff is about NIL. And it's just such a mess. And we talked about it last week, so I won't get into the weeds with it. But now you got Jimbo, reacting to Saban's accusation of buying players. And Jimbo came back pretty hard on that. And then Deion gets tinged in there with $1 million to Travis Hunter, which I'd love to see how that occurred. The thing I have a problem with is everybody's making assumptions. Tennessee's paying $8 million for a quarterback. Show me some receipts. I want to see these real deals. If you're going to accuse people of doing it, and we all know pay for play has been going on forever, but until you have proof, you got to keep your mouth shut. And even the GOAT, Nick Saban, should have kept his mouth shut in this situation.
Agreed, 100%. I think, a couple of things I saw that were interesting. Deion Sanders put a couple of videos out that I thought were interesting. And he said that he thought it was more Nick Saban trying to rile up his donors and his boosters to really step their game up. I'm not sure if that is or isn't the case, but I do think, obviously, a part of him that may be part of his strategy. But I think the other part of it is he is a control freak, and that's how you get to where he got to. And this takes away a lot more of everybody's control, right? So the control gets pushed out to the boosters and who has the money. And the people have talked about it, like Texas and Texas A&M booster money is going to be in a different level than a lot of other schools. And I heard some people even say that Auburn might have more big boosters than Alabama, right? So that could be another an issue there. I think the overall issue is that, it is pay for play, but we don't know what you said, we don't know what the actual dollar amounts really are. People just throw numbers around. The 8 million one comes to mind with the Tennessee, like, okay, 8 million, like that athlete that was supposedly getting $8 million, it's not like he bought 4 houses after that. You know what I'm saying? So I really like to know how those things are structured. Obviously, people are keeping those things on the wraps. I think that that's part of what NAL, the NCAA, is going to have to look at. Like, we need to have disclosure as to what those numbers are. We need to be able to see some level of transparency, like that we know that this is a receipt is going to X. You know what I mean? So if this person is getting paid, they submit that and say, hey, this is the amount of money. You know, right now, everything's fair game, but submit what that is. This is the amount that's going. So these things are confirmed, because otherwise you get price inflation even too, right? You get player price inflation. One guy could say he's getting $1 million. Meanwhile, he may only be getting 200,000 or 100,000 or a bunch of swag.
Right. And you know, the SEC, you know, the other SEC, Security Exchange Commission, you know, everything has to be, you know, it's not paper, but everything has to be out in the open. You know, when you're talking about trading commodities and stocks, and listen, these kids they're commodities, they're stocks, they're free agents, and now they're you know, paid players. So, you know, if you think of them, you know, as a stock or as, you know, somebody that's being compensated as an employee, or even not as an employee, just as a football player, let's see it up front. And again, you know, I'm not looking for a bank account of a kid with a deposit of $8 million. What I'm looking for is the contract, because everything has a contract. Everything is signed, sealed, and delivered. So if this, you know, if Travis Hunter got $1 million from Jackson State, there's paperwork somewhere saying that, and it's not from Jackson State, but who's the booster? What's his connection to the school? And then you can actually get names behind the money rather than just donors. And then people can actually look into it. And I think it's checks and balances for people. If you put your name out there as, I'm the donor that gave Travis Hunter $1 million, you know, a lot of scrutiny is going to come your way. Right now, it's just behind the scenes and it's just made up stuff. It's almost like in reporting, you know, unnamed source. And that has to happen sometimes because people don't want to go on the record. But you can't have that for NIL. So that is one of the things I think they're going to look to do, and make everything go from underground to above ground. I also think if I'm Saban, I'm not worried. I mean, geez, you know, let's say Auburn has better boosters or bigger boosters or whatever, or let's say Ole Miss has, you know, connections to bigger and better boosters in Alabama. That's Alabama's problem. They've won national championships. They're the big bad, you know, wolf in college football. So people need to step up. I'm not sure Saban's worried about that. I have a sneaking suspicion, honestly, that Saban wants to get pissed off about something. He needs that fire to go. What I saw Nick Saban shake hands with Kirby Smart and smile when he lost that national championship game, I was puzzled, because that's not who we are used to seeing. You know, that'd be like Larry Bird high-fiving Bill Laimbeer back in the day. It's just, no. I know he's a protege of yours. I know you brought him along, but you lost. So get pissed. You lost to Jimbo last year. Get pissed. Drop 60 on him if you're angry, but don't publicly accuse people of stuff without proof.
Yeah, I think that's a large issue. And I think the only thing so far that NAL has done is given the athletes the freedom to get the money above board, because since nothing is disclosed as to what it is, that's the only difference between what it was before, when it was under the table at certain places, versus now. It's just okay, you can get it, right? But nobody knows exactly who it's coming from or why. You know, there's a few instances and the collective thing is an interesting thing. I don't completely understand. I guess it's just a bunch of boosters putting their money in and giving it to whoever they want to. But yeah, I think the big thing in the transfer portal this week was Jordan Addison, right? I mean, going to USC with an already stacked, and you put it out there yesterday. I called it. It wasn't official until Mike Farrell said it was official, and you put it out there yesterday that, you know, this is already stacked USC wide receiver core that is going to be off the chain. Exactly what Lincoln Riley's looking for.
Yeah, and the Addison thing's funny because there's a lot of people that think that he took the visit to Texas to cover up, sort of a prearranged NIL agreement with USC, and he's trying to take the heat off of Lincoln Riley because it was leaked, that he had a deal in place with USC before he even went in the portal. Then he goes in the portal a couple days later, so everybody assumes there's tampering. I can tell you this: he didn't take a visit to Texas to offset that. They're going to look at this no matter what. He could have visited 5 other schools. He ended up at USC. There were rumors of an NIL deal, rumors of $3 million in a house, which I don't believe is true. But they're going to look into this. And that was the interesting part about it. So he either has the deal in place, and that was what Texas couldn't beat, because I know he went down to Texas to put, visit his old coach, Brendan Marion, his wide receiver coach at Pitt, or he just wanted to go to USC and play with Caleb Williams, who's his friend, Lincoln Riley, and his offense. And the problem with NIL now is we don't know. Everybody assumes it's a money grab for the kid. I don't know the kid. I talked to him maybe a couple times in high school, talked to a lot of people who know him, who said he's not that guy. He's not a money grab guy. He's not a, diva. He's not this and that. But his reputation, now he's lumped in with the other wide receivers that are considered divas, that are considered high maintenance, that are considered greedy. And I just don't think that's fair either. So, if there was an NIL deal, it would be verbal, I'm sure, before he hit the portal, but let's see it. Maybe it was, signed the day he got in the portal. If that's the case, then yeah, the Texas visit was garbage and it was just a front. Or maybe it hasn't been signed yet at all, which is my suspicion, that there's no paperwork signed for anything NIL for USC with him. But it is a deep group. It would have been a deep group at Texas too. Right. I'm the old school guy who wanted him to stay at Pitt just because I like that. I like superstar players on middling sort of teams. But we're in a new world now, and super teams are coming, and people say, oh, what are you, new? Super teams have been around forever. No. Super teams were high school kids that wanted to go to the same school. Now you've got college kids. One could be at Michigan, one could be at USC, one could be at Miami, that are going to get together in a LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh way and say, let's all go to this one school. And let's all make this school a superpower. And that's dangerous for parity. And Nick Saban says he cares about parity. I don't think he does, but I do. And I think that's a big area that they have to look into as well. As one team's going to load up with like 7 amazing transfers one year, and they're going to be unstoppable.
And how much fun is that even? That to me is that's how you begin to destroy a sport. The reason why the NFL popularity just continues to increase is because literally the Jets, if they do the right things in one year, could go from worst to first, and that's how it works if they do the right moves. And whereas in college football, we've talked about this, the same 10 teams are kind of rotating around, and the top 4 or 5 are always in the mix. So if you go to super teams, I mean, that's just crazy. We're going to anoint this school to be the best school this year. And it also shows you, I mean, obviously, as a coach, I've known this for years, but people always, hey, if you have the best players coming to your school, that's going to give you the best chance to be the best coach you could be, right? So you're not a good coach if you don't have the better players. And that's what that superpower thing comes.
Well, in the NBA, like I'm an old school NBA fan, right? So I'm, you and I are older than a lot of people who are following the sport, of college football nowadays. Obviously that's just the way it goes.
Right.
But a Bird versus Magic, the Pistons and the Bad Boys, and and the segue into Michael Jordan, and no super teams were created. I really got turned off by the NBA when they were. I like LeBron James. I liked him coming out of high school. I liked him with the Cavaliers. He's a Ohio kid playing for his home state, and when he went on ESPN and chose the Miami Heat to go with those other two guys, and I rooted against them. I didn't want to see them win. When he went back to Cleveland and he was a one-man band, I wanted to see him win again. I think that's just the way people are. I don't want to see the Lakers with LeBron and everybody else, coming together to form a super team and win. I'm glad they lost. And people feel that way already about Alabama. They want Alabama to lose because he gets all the best recruiting classes. But super teams are going to ruin the sport because then everybody's going to root against them. But there's just no way to create any parity. You could root against LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh all you want. They still won, I think, 2 titles, because they're just better. And a super team in college football is going to be just better. And I don't care, if it's, let's say it's Ohio State. I don't care how scrappy Michigan State may be. They're not going to win, and they're going to lose. And every year it's going to be the same thing. So there's a slippery slope here. And the NFL has free agency, but they've got caps. You got a lot of different restrictions. And that's the tricky part, because this came out and now you're trying to restrict it rather than a collective bargaining agreement of sorts where you're looking forward and saying, okay, from this date forward, these are the rules. Now it's from last summer, there are no rules. Now we're going to put rules in, and that's where you're going to get a lot of problems. So it's going to come down to the federal government. I don't think Sankey should have silenced the other coaches. Lane Kiffin was going to go on a Dan Patrick show, maybe, I'm not sure, to talk about Saban versus Fisher. I would have loved that. I'd love to hear what other SEC coaches have to say, whether they agree with Saban or whether they're on Fisher's side. I think it's good. That part is good, the feuds. They just got to figure out the parity part.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think what you talked about last week, which collective bargaining agreement, which means employee status, which means you have to have a solution for that. If they actually, instead of denying all that in the beginning, when Northwestern started to bring those players, brought the collective bargaining agreement issue for employees, they fought that. And what they got, instead of trying to figure out a solution, right, they fought it. And what they got is NIL. And what they could have got was an employee system with NIL under control, meaning up like what you would have in a regular company. An employee that they make XYZ with a bonus structure, right, which would be some form of NIL, right? So the high-performing employees are now getting a bonus structure. But now you're right. The cat's out of the bag. And I mean, they're both, one thing they both did, they basically asked Congress to do something about it, which I think is a whole nother really kind of tricky situation. So like government's going to step in and regulate college football. What does that do for the other sports, right? What does that do for Title IX? I mean, no one's talking about that, like how NIL, if we go down certain paths, you're just going to see possibly at some of these schools, a lot of these sports eliminated. So,
yeah. And the other thing, people don't know what they want. Remember when Northwestern was trying to unionize and everybody said, oh my God, that'd be the worst thing in the sport, right? Well, here we are, I think, 10 years later, and nobody unionized. And now we're in this nightmare. Like, unionizing wasn't the right thing, but when that was coming about, it was squashed. And nobody thought to themselves, okay, well, we got past that. That was close, but what's coming? Because, that was clear that these kids want to be treated as employees, or they want some sort of rights as employees or union members or whatever. Nobody thought. They're like, oh, wow, we dodged that bullet. Good. And then they rested and sat and did nothing and collected money. And now we're in this mess. You need Emmerich's gone. You need a forward thinker. The NCAA is not going to be in charge of this anyways, but you need forward thinkers. And somebody has to see, this isn't it. I mean, NIL is not it. We are just on the cusp of so many different changes to college football. It's like if you look at NFL in the 70s, right? When the Super Bowl, wasn't a big thing. The AFL, NFL had to merge. Like 30 years from now, I'll be gone, but this will be a completely different ballgame. So whoever is thinking about it now has to not only think about how do we fix NIL and make it better and keep parity, but how do we do that moving forward 10, 20 years from now as well?
That's a key thing, because the planning for the future is going to either make or break this whole entire thing. And the scramble part is what the issue is. I think that you're dead on the Super Bowl analogy, the NFL analogy of where it was 30 years ago. And, obviously we grew up in the 80s and knowing how football was big back then, but you had like two choices, to watch a game. And being from New Jersey, it was, you had the Giants and then you had the Jets, and occasionally, there would be a game of the week, like, because I'd see the Cowboys. I was a Cowboys fan. And, that's what it was. Literally, that was it. And then obviously ESPN and all the different groups getting involved. And then we already had Monday Night Football, but now you got Thursday Night Football. You got, you got all kinds of crazy Tuesday night, whatever it is. And you have football every single night a week, whether it's college football or NFL. And when people go through their calendar, like, I know I do this in the fall, I look to see, okay, is there a college game on Tuesday, like the old MAC games, right?
Yeah.
The Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember, it was Wednesday night maybe, then Thursday night, then Friday night. Yeah, you have high school football, then Saturday college football, Sunday pro football, Monday pro football, right? So people literally in the fall have a 7-day calendar all around football and want to watch it. And then the last part of what you said, which I think was really important, like I played it when I played on scholarship at UConn in the 90s. Okay. You literally could do nothing. Like, you could get nothing. You could do nothing. You got your education. And one of the biggest mistake that they made, which was literally 20 years later, is that they thought that same system, which we knew in the 90s was a crazy system, when you, like, all the guys on a team are like, okay, can you get, $10 together to go so we could go out and have a Saturday night, like literally pooling your pennies together. You knew back then that this was not a great system. And people say, oh, well, scholarship is scholarship. Yeah. Okay. I say this. Well, this was back in the night. Now you can work, right? And Nick Saban brought that up. They can work. I was at FCS. UConn was FCS back then. Football was a 40-hour work week at FCS. There's no doubt about it. Like, we would work out, watch film. You'd be in your night classes. You barely could peel your eyes open to stay awake to watch it. And then if you had to do homework, and if you were a smarter, I was lucky. I felt like I was a little bit more smarter than the guys on some of the team who were not. If you were not a really smart guy where you could kind of almost cut corners and still do well, which is what you had to do. Like, you didn't have the study time that the kid who, went to class done by 1, you had all day. They could drink beer, be drunk, and get all their studying in. You had to be able to be really good with your time. So if you were an okay smart person and didn't know how to manage your time, or didn't have that background in it, you really had a hard time. And I thought that was really unfair to a lot of guys. And the fact that 20 years later, when Northwestern put that out there, the Northwestern players, and basically the only thing they could think about was shutting it down. I thought at the time that they were going to win possibly in that situation, just being a player. And not that I didn't think unionizing was the way to go, but they were going to win to have some sort of their voice heard on this. The whole thought process is that they decided not to address it. And the big issue, and I saw Deion talk about this part yesterday. It's pay per view. He calls it pay per view, but it's pay to play, right? So once you put rules back in, I mean, the players are going to rebel. Am I wrong on that?
No, I mean they're
Can they?
They're going to go after the schools, and the schools, I don't know what the schools are going to do because you can't go after the players because of antitrust. So now that you've allowed players, now that you've allowed Quinn Ewers to earn money at Texas, to take that away from others, unless it's federally mandated, isn't going to go over. They can go after the schools and try to cripple the schools a little bit and have them reel in their boosters. And, and that's part of what Saban doesn't want to do. He doesn't want to babysit. I mean, he's already, they've already got, what was it? There was one situation in Alabama recently, I think with a Jai Hall, that, no, it was Dalton Kincaid, the kid from Utah, right? So there was a rumor out there that they were targeting him in the portal. And then, because of that targeting, they had Terrell Hatton at Louisville was already rumored. And so everybody was saying Saban was tampering. And it was a booster that actually tampered and reached out to this kid, and it was in Alabama. And that's just one example of somebody going rogue. And that's what he doesn't want. He doesn't want these boosters to go rogue. But he also doesn't want to have to babysit them. And so what the NCAA is going to do is they can't go after players. They're going to go after schools, and the schools are going to have to babysit their boosters. And not only do you have to monitor the transfer portal, not only do you have to deal with NIL and kids coming on a visit saying, how much you got for me, which is annoying, obviously, to coaches. Now you got to babysit your boosters too, and it just becomes too much. And Saban just wants to coach football, and he doesn't like people cutting corners, and he thinks Jimbo's cutting corners. And, there's a whole past thing there. And Jimbo's saying, I've worked with this guy, he's not an angel. Well, okay. So Saban, where's your proof? And Fisher, if you have dirt on him, release it. Otherwise, both of you shut up. But it's kind of fun for me because I like it. Because there's no college football to talk about. Now we got two millionaires. And then there's fans crapping on Jordan Addison saying he's in for a money grab. So Jordan Addison does what's right for him. Let's say you're a kid, and all of a sudden they come up with these rules where you can go to any school you want without penalty, and you can make millions of dollars. But Jordan Addison should stay at Pitt out of loyalty. Meanwhile, these coaches that are making $10 million a year are jabbing at each other and whining about NIL. So how's the kid a bad kid? It's just – the whole thing's a nightmare. And listen, his offensive coordinator and his wide receiver coach both left. They didn't have to sit out. They both got more money. Whipple's making more money in Nebraska. Marion's making more money at Texas. So why does Jordan Addison have to sit? But that's not what Saban wants. That's not what they don't want the players to have the control and power. So it's a mess. I like the arguments. I like the pettiness. It's fun. I don't know what the solution is. That's not my problem. I'm not getting paid big bucks to solve it. I'm freaking moving. When's the last time you moved?
I moved 4 years ago.
Hell.
Yeah.
Hell on earth.
How far are you moving to where?
Not far. 30 minutes, but everything, downsizing and everything in my house, it's a nightmare. So that's my focus. These $10 million a year coaches and the little problems don't bother me at all.
The greatest reality show of all time is sports.
Yeah. No, it's always fun. It never stops. And back to, speaking of, you mentioned scrambling and the NCAA trying to scramble. I've been watching a little bit of Carson Rauner while we've been on TV.
Oh, he's running. He's good. He's very good.
And I don't want to call out his offensive line, but my goodness, dude, keep the kid upright for a second. But he is good. I mean, I have to look a few more times. He's got a little bit of a sidearm whip delivery, and there's, things that need work on, like every quarterback. I mean, Trevor Lawrence needed stuff to work on as a sophomore, and I'm not saying this kid's Trevor Lawrence, but there's talent and ability here that I don't think anybody knows about. And he's a 2024, which is good as well. So we do have the program where promotion at a young age, not sixth grade, not 4-year-olds, but, a few years before you blossom is always helpful. And then a kid like this, who is 2024, everybody's talking about the Arch Mannings and Malachi Nelsons of the world. and this kid might be a solution for somebody. So sign up for that. It's myfootballcamps.com/division D1. Sorry. It's pinned on the top of my Twitter. I'm sure we're just going to keep promoting it. Just DM us with interest, and I got to go back to hell. Before I got in here, I was trying to cancel my cable, right? And so cable's not offered. The same cable carrier is not offered where I'm moving. It took me 45 minutes
to cancel cable.
Yeah, because they wanted me to, sign up for their streaming service, or they wanted to talk me out of moving. It's like, listen, I know you're losing business,
right?
But just cancel my freaking cable.
Should be a button
where you're charging me $1 billion, and let me go. And then, now I got to return. Obviously, I got to return the cable boxes and all this other stuff. It's just one cancellation, 45 minutes, and I got to do that for like 58 things. So that'll be my focus of the day. But sign up for the program, and we'll do this again next Monday. Well, I'll be in a new home with a new backdrop.
Oh, new backdrop. Well, that'll be exciting.
Well, it'll be nothing. Look at my backdrop now. It's like everything's gone. So it'll be a new backdrop. It'll be nothing also, because it's going to take me a month to.
Who are the guys that you have up top there?
Oh, man. So the very top row, I don't know if you can see the very top row, but what I did is I had these custom McFarlanes made by very creative people for every number one recruit since 2002. So you got Vince Young up there, Adrian Peterson, Ernie Sims, and into Percy Harvin, Derek Williams first, then Percy Harvin, Jimmy Clausen. I had them all made. I stopped right around Rashawn Gary. So I've got about 12 solid years, 2012. Yeah, about maybe 14 solid years of guys. It's pretty cool. I don't know why I did it. I had more money then, Dave. I had money to burn. So, yeah, that's Vince. I got Odell Beckham, Bryce Brown.
Wow, Bryce Brown.
Kim Diche. It's pretty cool. I got to finish it. Someday. But
the Browns were innovators back in the day of their marketing. Remember the phone calls? People would not even remember. You'd have to call a number.
Yep.
And remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those are maybe those days will come back. All right. So we'll do this next Monday at noon.
Absolutely. Check out myfootballcamp/D1. Hit me up at Coach Schuman. Hit up Mike at Mike Farrell Sports. All social DMs are open. We'd love to talk to you. We'll see you soon next week.